Welcome to the Church Communications Podcast. I'm Katie Allred.
And I'm Kenny Jahng.
We want to help you become a better church communicator.
And this is the place we're going to talk about strategies and best practices for your church.
Let's get started.
Hey friends, it's that time again. Kenny Jahng, Katie Allred, reporting to you live from the interwebs.
Yes, welcome to episode 3 of this season.
Katie, aren't you excited that we're doing this together?
I mean, I'm pretty psyched about it. This is the most time we've ever spent together, actually, so.
It is a pleasure, an honor to be co-hosting this podcast series with you. We are really diving deep, I think, into some of the practical necessities of what churches need to do with their websites. Right at the end of the day, I think there was a period of time where everyone almost forgot about their website, almost like it's their fifth, sixth, seventh child that tends to get forgotten about, or a pet that's just in the corner all day.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's a resurgence of attention back to websites, and so today we're going to talk about the old topic of on-page SEO.
Yep.
Seems to be something that never disappears, right? Just keeps on percolating back in circles and conversations.
It does come up a lot, but it hasn't changed a ton, honestly, in actual doing it. So I mean, there's definitely some things that have changed a little bit. Like back in the day, in order to get rank for keywords, right, to rank for certain things in your area, you used to have to just write the same thing over and over and over again.
Yes.
And that's not necessarily the case anymore. Actually, Google will penalize you for doing that.
Yes. Would you like a church in Tampa, Florida? Because Tampa, Florida is a great place to have friends that you live with in Tampa, Florida, and invite them to your Tampa, Florida church.
Right. And that was what SEO people recommended for a long time. And SEO experts probably still say stuff like that, but that's not necessarily the case.
No, not at all. In fact, so we're going to focus in on just 3 things today, right? That we are talking about on-page SEO, testing, how well your website content does. I think this is the stuff that we want to get to. And first of all, we got to talk about some of the stuff what is on-page SEO, right? So maybe we should start there.
So that is the stuff that's happening on the page, even if it's in the background, not necessarily happening throughout the site or through Google My Business or something. It's actually happening on the website's page.
Yeah, and so I think we both came to agreement that there's probably just 3 core things that everyone here needs to pay attention to first. I think it's, again, it's kind of like a dark hole that you can be, trapped in a tunnel somewhere if you really go down deep and get lost in SEO. But really, I think all websites, all church websites, need to think about these 3 things first. So, Katie, why don't you just share first what those 3 things are, and then we can go through them today.
Okay, so content metadata, and then speed, and then security. So again, content metadata, speed, and security. So don't worry if you're like, I have no idea what she just said. We're going to go through it.
So, metadata.
What is content metadata?
It's this is the stuff that in order for your church website to be displayed as in like an organic search result, not paid, right? It's not an ad, but naturally, you got to have content that's dedicated to telling Google and the bots, right, all the search engines, what topic of relevance your website is all about.
Right.
And so,
too, if you don't have content, so say you have specific ministries, right? You've got a special needs ministry, you have a counseling ministry. If you don't have content about those things on your website, how is anyone going to know that you offer counseling? How is anybody going to know that you have a special needs ministry? You've got to put the content on your website and then structure it so Google can understand it.
Absolutely. And so, first of all, we're not going to discuss what content you should have actually on your church's website today, but instead we're going to talk about how the content you do have should be structured, again, because it's really important for Google to understand what it is all about and then let them deliver it to the searchers, right?
Right.
Okay, so where do we start?
Okay, so purposely optimize your page titles, so your browser titles. We talked about this a little bit in the last episode,
Yep.
but the browser title is basically the title element in HTML. Okay, you can set this on Yoast, you can set this, um, that's a WordPress plugin. So you can set this in WordPress, you can set this if you're just doing an HTML website, you can set this in Squarespace. But essentially, it's a 50, 60 characters title of your church's website.
Yep.
It's really important for Google to understand it. So you need to say what is on the page, but also you need to say where you are.
Great. And then I think the second one, if you're going to set the title description,
Yeah.
there's these meta descriptions, or what your page is about, right? And we talked about how Google actually will pick up that text and use it as the blurb in the search result pages sometimes. And again, this can come down to the difference between whether someone's going to click on your listing on the SERP, the search engine result page, or not, right? They're going to ignore your search result and keep on going down the page and try to find the next one. So if you don't set this meta description for your page, then Google is going to have to figure out on its own a search result description that's it's going to basically scan your page and try to pull snippets together. And I feel like we could probably do some memes probably of failed snippets that Google has figured. Google thinks your page is about this, and then it presents it, and it's completely off,
Completely
right?
off.
So
Yeah.
you really want to set that meta description tag.
Yeah. It's 160 characters. So it's not super long, but you just need to be upfront, clear, to the point. We are a church. Christian Community Church is a church in Dallas, Texas, and we offer children's ministries, blah, 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 blah. We care about you.
Right. And
Next thing, Kenny.
it's like we talked about last time, right? So these are very standard, very basic best practices. Headings are appropriate, right? So the organization is really important for content on the web. And so if you think about kind of like when you're in high school or college writing essays and outlines, you have ordered lists that indent into sublists, sublists, sublists. And that's the same thing that's going on here. We have a headline 1 tag, which should be your largest, most important subject category tag. That's your headline. And then the H2 is the next order of business, and the H3. So it's like a nested different levels of a headline. Those help Google tell what's important and what is the relationship of content in that structure of the conversation that you're putting out there. I think it's really important for you to put that out there for the user, but it also helps for Google ranking as well.
For sure. And it also helps with accessibility. So as a church, you know how many people in your community are hurting. You have developed amazing ministries to help, but how do you connect your church ministries with those who so desperately need them? Imagine what would happen. Google would gladly do it for you. Paying attention to your church's website's on-page SEO is the answer.
So our friends at Michelin Marketing, they created this checklist, which I love. It's a simple checklist for on-page SEO to basically help you understand how your church is doing this whole area. So they've also developed this diagnostic tool, which I think all churches should put their website through. It's free. Basically, it's a tool that crawls every nook and cranny of the site, identifies keywords connected to each page, and then like a rating of effectiveness for each one. So Michelin Marketing is offering both of these resources to our listeners today. We're thanking them for sponsoring this series so that we can provide these resources to you for free.
Yeah. All you have to do is go to missionalmarketing.com/onpage. Again, that is missionalmarketing.com/onpage, one word. All right. So what is the next thing we need to focus on?
This one drives me crazy, man. Like when you're setting up a WordPress, especially, you got some options. And then sometimes you have URLs that is like gobbledygook, right? It's like mychurch.org/ministry-children/XRP123. Like it just goes on and on and on. It's almost like pi, right? 3.14,
Right.
but in letters. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. The web is made for people. It's written by people. Your URLs should indicate structure and purpose. Those are the two things I think you should be in plain English.
Mhm.
So I don't know. Maybe you can give an example, Katie. Like what, like a children's ministry page.
Yep.
What might be the structure of
So
your
I
website?
would literally just do slash children personally, but you could do slash ministry slash children, right? Because
Yeah.
it belongs under ministries. You can even get more specific than that, right? You might have a preschool ministry in your children's
Yeah.
ministry. Well, you might could do ministry slash children slash preschool. The important thing is just to make sure your permalink structure uses plain English instead of numbers.
Yes. Please, please,
Yeah.
please.
Just
Okay,
super
Katie.
easy to
What's
set
the
up
last one?
in
I think
WordPress.
this is, to me, it's like one of my secret weapons in SEO, because I think it's like one of those things that it just takes a little bit extra time to do this, but the results are huge.
Huge. Yeah, I completely agree.
Um, so the last one is alt text, right?
Yes.
So there's these tags, alternate text tags that
Mhm.
you can put on, these attributes you define. It's not seen by um, regular display of web pages. It is seen for accessibility issues,
Yep.
but it also serves a purpose for Google, right?
Yeah. 100%. Google will read all of these tags. So you have to make sure that the tags are descriptive and that they actually do explain what's happening here. But you can also use them as the time for you to put Florida church or whatever, those kind of things in there, just because it does help eliminate the disconnect.
Like imagine if you had a page on life groups and you had a dozen pictures, and you could say, I'll just use cities in New Jersey: West Orange Life Group, Paramus Life Group, Livingston Life Group, right? You can have all these city names and it's associated with life groups, and then someone who's searching for churches with life groups or churches with small groups
Yeah.
near me, that's going to help the page ranking. So these alt text attributes um, are kind of like a secret weapon to me. It's so easy to set. It just takes a little bit extra time, but the results are going to be amazing. So that's great. Content and metadata.
Right.
The second one I think you said was talking about it was
Speed
speed.
optimization.
Yeah. Tell us
Speed.
about that. Why is
It
it important?
matters. Okay, so you can go to page speed through Google. So just Google page speed, and you can type in your address, your URL, and find out what the page speed is for your website. So desktop versus mobile, there's different page speeds there. Basically, how fast does your website load? If your website doesn't load like in less than 3 seconds, then you're going to lose users. And also, Google is going to rank you lower. So it's not only will you lose users because they don't like your slow website, but Google will actually push your ranking down because your website's slow. And there's a lot of different things that impact speed. Okay, so it's not just your web host. Your web host does play a huge part in this. So please get a great web host. Don't buy I'm not gonna say don't buy Bluehost, but get a good web host. And then that ranks well for speed, but also crunching your images, right? Optimizing those images. There's a lot of different things you can do to optimize your speed. So it will actually tell you how to optimize your speed. If you go into page speed, and they will actually generate a little report for you and tell you all the things you can do in order to do that. You can also minify some scripts, which that's a little more technical developer kind of jargon. But I just recommend figuring out, there's a ton of different optimized plugins too. If you want to do that, caching is really important. CDN, a cloud delivery network, can help increase your speed. There's a
Hey,
lot of different ways.
is this a southern northern thing? Is it caching, cache, cache?
I don't know. I have no idea.
It's like GIF and GIF. What do you call it? GIF or GIF?
Yeah. I'm 100% on the GIF team.
Even though everyone else says GIF.
That's not correct though. Well, first off, I've always been on the GIF team ever since I was a child, been team GIF. But then the guy who created GIFs came out and said it's
Yes.
GIF. And then also, you don't say giraffe, you say giraffe. I don't understand. And then people are like, well, it's a anonym or whatever. It's a thing, not an anonym, but it's an
Acronym.
Right, it's an acronym. And so they're like, graphics has a G sound.
Guh.
a hard G. Well, I was like, you don't say ATM, like ATM. You know what I'm saying? I know it's amount, but you don't say that. You don't say ATM or whatever. So I was like, that's not how you do it.
I'm gonna start calling it an ATM.
ATM. I gotta go visit the ATM later.
Cash from the ATM.
Gotta go get the cash from the ATM. So it's GIF because it's a silent G sound, right? I mean, anytime there's a G and an I together, it's GIF. I mean, and of course, like nobody expected it could just be GIF. We could be saying that, like we say PNG, but there's a vowel in the middle, so why not? Anyway, that was besides the point. But speed, really important. You should do it.
Yes, speed is important.
It improves your SEO. No doubt at all. Like if your website is slow, you will not rank, and we don't want you to do that.
There's even a technology called AMP pages, which loads lightning fast, and Google prioritizes pages built in AMP than regular static or dynamic sites. Anyway,
articles really. I don't know if it's the whole website, but articles, especially, you can use AMP for, and there's a plugin for that if you're using WordPress.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, the third pillar, right? You said first of all in on-page SEO, we need to think about your content and metadata. We got to talk about speed optimization. What was the third pillar you're talking about?
Website security.
Okay, this is I think this is a big issue. I just had a client site got hacked last week.
Yeah.
And it actually set up, I think 80 gigabytes of data logs in the account. And so it overloaded the hosting account. I mean, there's just security is something we have to pay attention to today.
Yeah. And it's really a hot mess. Like it's very easy to, like, before you know it, your website's hacked or whatever. But did you know if you're not using an SSL certificate, so your website needs to be HTTPS, not just HTTP, and it has to have the lock symbol up in the browser. If you don't have an SSL certificate, your website will not rank. And then every time somebody goes to your website, it's going to pull up, especially in Google Chrome, it's going to pull up, this website's not secure. You want to go back? So that's terrible. You don't want that to happen to your church's website because people are going to automatically think your church isn't legitimate. So get an SSL certificate. It's
so
really
where do you get an SSL certificate? Is it like you go to school and complete a course and get the certificate?
No, it's not a real certificate. It's a online thing, a digital certificate of sorts that you add to your hosting, not through your domain, typically through your host.
Your web host.
Yeah, your web host. So whoever your web host is, you can get an SSL certificate. You can get one for free through let'sencrypt.com. It's so easy to set up. Most of the time your host will set it up for you. If they're trying to charge you for it, maybe tell them there's a free one. Can we do that? For a long time, hosts wouldn't do it for free. And now it's become pretty normal just because you kind of have to have one. Otherwise, again, Google is going to push you down in the rankings if you're not HTTPS and you're not secure.
So SSL certificate means you have your the site session is encrypted for all you nerds out there. It has a secure connection. And you want to make sure that's used all the time. There's a plugin called Really Simple SSL. It's a WordPress plugin. So if you have a WordPress site, it actually just forces the SSL connection all the time. So it guarantees that all your transmission to and from your site will be private. And it also creates consistent URLs for your Google Analytics tracking and other purposes. So that HTTPS is just so important, right?
Right. And sometimes it'll happen where there might be mixed content where some of it's secure and some of it's not. And that happens when your website hasn't been for a long time and maybe some images aren't behind that SSL certificate. I would totally just talk to your web host about that and see if they can't rectify it for you, because a lot of times they will fix it. So that's where I would try to lean on them and ask them some questions through their support if you have it.
Gotcha. Well, that's great. So I think today we talked about on-page SEO. Hopefully, if you listen to our previous episode, go back to this last episode, we were talking about local SEO. There's a difference between that kind of activity and on-page SEO. So hopefully you understand the difference between the two different activities. They're both important. Today we talked about metadata, why that type of content of your title, meta descriptions, your alt image tags, etc. Those are like your secret weapons. Go off and do them. And then speed was really important. And then the security stuff, right? Those are I think for on-page SEO, those are the three pillars that almost any and everyone, all 21,000 people in our Facebook group, right? The Church Communications Facebook group, better have these three things. In fact, we almost should like require it to get into the group.
Right? Like that should be a question. Have you set up your on-page
Yes.
SEO?
So there was a lot. So there's a lot we covered. It might be intimidating. Katie, I think there was a checklist that you said that we had available for everybody.
Yeah, there is a checklist. If you go to missionalmarketing.com, they're sponsoring this today. It's missionalmarketing.com/on-page. Okay, no dash, just /on-page. You can download a checklist and get the test and figure out how well your website content metadata is optimized for ministry related keywords. So again, missionalmarketing.com/on-page.
Great. Again, I love the fact that we're going through the core basic best practices for websites, because again, I think websites were forgotten. Katie, what are we going to talk about next time as we get together?
Well, so we're talking about using Google Analytics and the search engine console to gain actionable insights. So I'm excited to figure out what we're going to talk about next time. Google Analytics, I mean, if you haven't been using Google Analytics, you really need to. I mean, there's so much you can gain and learn. Like I found out in the group, I asked people to look at their Google Analytics and tell me how many people's websites are mostly mobile users. And it was like 70% of churches found that 80% of their users were mobile, something like that. It's wild, right?
That's like, woo.
Yeah. So like mobile use on websites is if you should be mobile friendly first. So we're going to talk about how you can use Google Analytics to pull insights like that. Really exciting stuff. I can't wait for next week.
Yeah, and then finally, you're going to be in the know because there's all these techie terms like a bounce rate, conversion rate, click-through rate. I mean, there's all these terms that tossed around, and I'm sure when I first started, I felt like I was the only fool in the room because I didn't know all those terms. We should go over some of those stuff and make sure that everyone feels comfortable, Katie, next time we get together.
Yeah, sounds great.
Well, thanks for joining us today. One of the things that we really want you guys to do is help us share these episodes with your friends and your team members if you find them helpful. It's one of the best things that you can do to help us reach more church communicators and equip them. Our heart is to really equip people with the best practices that we have here in technology, the internet, the web, the social media, etc. And Katie and I just would love for you to be able to share that as a resource with someone that you know that would benefit from it. And also the obligatory smash that like button, give us a review, and reach out to us. We love hearing from you. And then last call out is, Katie, what's the best place to find our community and our resources? If you could just hand out our URL and our Facebook group name. It's really hard to remember.
Yeah, churchcommunications.com. Again, that is churchcommunications.com. And you can also find our group on there if you just click group. So we'd love to have you. Can't wait to see you in the group if you haven't been a part. So looking forward to it. You can improve the online impact of every ministry within your church through on-page SEO. Help ministries of your church today. Download Missional Marketing's on-page SEO checklist and use their powerful keyword analyzer tool. Both resources are totally free for our listeners. All you need to do is go to missionalmarketing.com/on-page. I'll see you there.